Hey everybody. So I wanted to come to you with a special report, and I've tried to make this as journalistic as possible. And here's the reasons why. One of which is that they've put security gear out here, surveillance gear out here on a telephone pole that is right at the end of my driveway, which is 400 feet away from the screen. The other thing is they took this particular story I'm going to go into today off of the internet, or at least the meat of it. And so I'm going to go through it in complete detail, and then you're going to be able to go and find it on my Substack, which is going to have all of the citations, all of the links, all of the necessary information for you to make up your own mind. Sort of like when you were in college studying something, right? And I don't know if you used AI or you used the encyclopedia. Well, you used to research something. Okay, this is pretty significant. It's significant enough that they keep wanting to take it off. So I'm going to be saving a copy of this so that when they take it off, I can reload it back up. So if you think about what happens in business. So if somebody's making $1 million a month, most people want to know what they're doing to make that $1 million a month. There's a track, there's a method, and whether you're selling tomatoes, wine, eggs, or turkeys, if you got enough money where you can have $1 billion in your personal bank account and be one of the top accounts for one of the largest banks in the world, your business is doing something, right? So I want to talk to you about one of those pipelines. And the pipeline is, I want to expose the business model of how American institutions harvest children for profit. That's what I said. Harvest children for profit. The thing that nobody seems to ask is, where does the product come from? They said they'd release the Epstein files, get to the bottom of it, show us everything. I waited. You waited. They waited. We waited. Not for one, not for two, not for three, but they've been talking about this for 6 months. 6 months. I gave them a chance to do their job. And when I say their job, I'm not just talking about politicians. I'm talking about media as well. And so this is a critique for them as well. They had their chance to expose how it actually worked. Instead, we get heavily redacted files, focus on famous names, like that's what matters. Whether somebody got a birthday card or not. Celebrity gossip, Prince Andrew flight logs, tabloid fodder. 3 months of media coverage on Epstein's connections to powerful people alone. Just that. 0 weeks about the system that fed them the children. That's not journalism. That's misdirection. So here's the question everyone avoids. Where did the children come from? Not in the metaphysical question. I'm not talking about from heaven. I mean the logistical one. 188 documented victims through compensation funds and settlements. This wasn't opportunistic predation. This was industrial scale trafficking requiring a systemic recruitment, multiple residential properties, and operational sites. Private aviation for interstate and international transport, and financial systems processing billions of transfers. Billions of transfers of dollars. Can I point something out to you, please? You mind? So Target and Walmart and a number of retailers can tell you how they can track a toothbrush, toothpaste, and mouthwash from wherever it's made to whoever gets it. all the way down the line. Okay? So I have a witness whose name will not get mentioned, and I won't even play her words. I'm going to read them to you. I have protected the testimony of a survivor. She was 14 years old when recruited from Washington State foster care. 2 other girls from the same pipeline are dead. She agreed to share her story through me because she will not go public. She knows what happens to those that do. She said that my mother died of a drug overdose when I was 10. And then I was bounced around to a number of foster homes before I went to a group home in Kent, Washington. I think I was 11. I was just starting to develop, she said. The woman who owned it and her husband said that I would make a great model and that wouldn't I like to do that? Well, I was living in foster care, so sure, I thought, and they taught me some stuff about makeup and they taught me some stuff about fashion, and he took some pictures of me when I was in a swimsuit. And all of a sudden, it seemed that the caseworker was in on it because she was talking to me about the same too. Shortly after my 14th birthday, I got to ride in a really cool corporate jet. The idea was that I was going to go to the East Coast to become a model. We flew from the airport, I think it's in Redmond, Washington, and the caseworker took me to an airport in Florida, and then we went to Mar-a-Lago after we landed. I got to meet Ms. Maxwell, and I was under the impression she was going to be my agent. They exchanged some information, and I think an envelope traded hands, and the caseworker left, and I was there. When I asked if there was any chance that she would testify publicly, she broke down. Okay? I know of 2 women who were brought in at the same time around that I was, and they're not alive anymore. They talked about maybe sharing their story, and I'm not doing that. I'm sharing it with you, and if you're going to make me tell the story publicly, I'm going to die. You can't do that to me. Okay, that was her words. Okay? So if you look at this story more closely, that was a state caseworker, a corporate jet, an envelope of cash, and a 14-year-old girl, payment on delivery. This is not an isolated incident. This is documented supply chain in operation. In operation. Not used to be. Okay, there are still witnesses coming forward with this actually the same story. Court documents, bank records, federal investigation, numbers that prove scale. Transaction volume. Okay, the guy had $1.3 billion in his personal bank account. If that's a commission, it's one hell of a one. In suspicious wire transfers over 16 years, JP Morgan Chase alone, roughly $80 million per year moving through one man's account at one bank. JP Morgan filed 7 suspicious activity reports over 14 years while Epstein was alive. After he died, then suddenly they found 5,000 suspicious transactions they missed. The cumulative dollar value they reported after his death was 300 times greater than what they flagged while he was still alive. It's documented. It's in the news. He paid Ghislaine Maxwell $25 million. One payment alone. His accounts generated $1.6 million in revenue for JP Morgan annually. He was their number 2 client among the ultra high net worth individuals. What was the product? I wonder why they never asked that question. $80 million a year in transaction volume that they found. You're running a legitimate business at scale, say distinguished wine distribution. You need infrastructure, sales teams, logistics coordinators, warehouse staff, compliance officers, accountants, 30 to 50 employees minimum, office space, licensing, W-2s, auditable paper trails. Epstein had what? A scheduler? One person? Maybe a pilot? Well, he also had property managers and a handful of assistants. The money moved like a mid-sized enterprise. The org chart and personnel staff had to be at least that big. The gap is the whole story. The continuity. When a real business owner dies, somebody dies. Well, somebody steps in and takes over in any business, right? There's a carcass to fight over. Clients call lawyers, assets get transferred, someone takes over the book of business, employees file for unemployment, suppliers want to know who's honoring contracts. That must have been a fun bunch of phone calls. Epstein dies in 2019. What continued? No clients came forward asking who manages their money now, no portfolio transition, no book of business sold, no successor operation, or was there? The business vanished like smoke. Did it? Is smoke really all it was? Except his properties are still staffed 6 years later, not mothballed, not boarded up, active, people on site carrying on it, doing more than carrying head shears. Who's paying security, utilities, staff salaries for multiple international properties? If this was purely victim compensation liquidation, you'd shutter everything. Everything would be closed. Sell fast, distribute proceeds, don't need to maintain a staffed Caribbean island for half a decade while lawyers sort paperwork. The business supposedly died with him. Really? Even if a business dies, a business closes in your town, isn't there still a shell of a building? Isn't there like shelves inside? Isn't there, equipment or something? How come we haven't seen that? Maybe there's a reporter out there with some cojones. Okay, so here's another example. Not that, and I'm not saying that Aristotle Onassis had anything to do with that stuff, okay? But I want you to think about something. Aristotle Onassis didn't beat competitors by making better products. He acquired their supply lines, controlled shipping. Didn't matter what you produced. If you couldn't move it, you had nothing. He bought the checkpoint. The question is, who controls the supply chain now? The recruitment pipelines, the transport logistics, the destination properties, the client relationships. Maxwell handled recruitment. She's in prison, but she wasn't the logistics. She was sourcing. The planes got sold, traceable, branded liability, but the property still staffed, still operational, still useful to someone. The franchise. Okay, so if you were to think of this as a corporation, not a conspiracy, but a business model, Incepents Inc. Incepents means beginning to exist. These children are processed at the beginning of their existence as commodities. Corporate structure. Headquarters deliberately doesn't exist. No central database means no central accountability. 50 state systems conveniently that don't connect. Regional offices. Every state has a child protective services. Did you hear what I just said? Each with its own policies, its own record keeping, and its own definition of resolved. Branch operations, group homes, foster placement agencies, residential treatment facilities. Each receives federal dollars per child in custody. Have you heard how that the tax system finds somebody who's left $86 unpaid? How that a welfare mom can lose all of her benefits because she got $20 too much, not her fault? That same system allegedly can lose 75,000 kids and nobody knows. Caseworkers are salespeople. Most are overwhelmed and well-intentioned. Some are complicit. The system doesn't require them to ask where the children go when the file closes. logistics, private transport, sometimes planes, movement between states breaks tracking, movement between systems breaks accountability. Remember what I said about toothpaste? Customers, network like Epstein's, man camps in oil fields, message parlor operations, private buyers, anyone who needs product and has cash. I'm not just talking about little girls. There are young men that are sold to labor camps. They call them man camps. Federal dollars flow in for placements. Children's flow out as product. The spread stays with the operations. So what about quality control? Well, in this particular case, there is none. Target tracks every tube of toothpaste from a manufacturer to a shelf to checkout to real times across 1,900 stores. The federal government can't track 400,000 children in state custody. They're not failing to track. Shrinkage is the product. Foster care shrinkage. 10%? Do you know what most CEOs would do if they had a 10% shrinkage? They'd be fired, unless it was part of the plan. That's not a gap, that's a feature. Offices in every state harvesting their percentage of unwatched, disadvantaged kids. 50 state branches is same franchise model, same product line. The supply chain. So I bet you think I'm making this stuff up, right? Doesn't matter all the stuff that's on the news. I bet you think I'm making this stuff up. Luckily, I'm going to post it on Substack. And here's the box to look it up. Here's the QR code to look it up. Okay, but HHS Office of Inspector General Report A-07-21-06102, March 2023. What's it now? 2026? Oh my God, you mean the government knows about this? Let me explain it. This is federal audit of whether states properly reported children missing from foster care, not whether they found them, whether they reported them as disappearances. Okay, if you got 10 kids over for your house for a sleepover and one of them disappears, you don't think the parents would notice? You don't think the family would notice that this kid came up missing? The numbers, 75,000 children missing in foster care for 2 or more consecutive days during a 30-month audit window. 45% were never reported to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, never at all. 22% were reported late, outside the 24-hour federal requirement. Only 1/3 of foster children were reported as required by law. Estimated number reported to anyone, never reported to anyone, was 34,869 over a 30-month period. What resolved means, because a lot of these cases they call resolved. Here's what the headlines don't tell you. Episode resolved doesn't mean children found.
Wow.
It means file closed, payment stopped, no longer counted as in care, no longer our problem. The audit examined whether states reported disappearances, not whether anyone found the children. The system tracks paperwork, not people. The trafficking math. Research indicates that 60 to 70% of children go missing from foster care end up trafficked. Research 74,353 missing children episodes. From one supply line documented in government files, 52 children per day, every day, one every 28 minutes from foster care alone. Now, would you like to hear about the invisible inventory? Would you? Probably not. The foster care pipeline doesn't operate in isolation. It's the same architecture, database gaps, jurisdictional voids, data suppression appears across multiple populations. They're kept in separate filing cabinets so nobody sees the whole operation. The compartmentalization is the security system. If they don't count it, they don't count, right? Indigenous women and children. In 2016, the National Crime Information Center database contained 5,712 reports of missing American Indian or Alaska Native women and girls. The Department of Justice Federal Missing Persons database contained 116. Gee, they missed a few. That's a 98% gap between what exists and what was tracked federally. Violence against women statistics, 84.3% of Native women experience violence in their lifetime. 56.1% experience sexual violence, murder rate 10 times the national average. 40% of all sex trafficking victims are indigenous. Man camps, temporary housing for extractive industry workers. Doesn't that sound nice? Extractive. Create concentrated demand for trafficking victims near tribal lands. DOJ data from Balkan oil region, 70% in violent crime, 30% increase in rape during boom years. In 1978, the Supreme Court decision of Oliphant v. Sasquatch stripped tribal police of the authority to charge non-tribal citizens. Perpetrators know exactly where the judicial void is. Canada's National Inquiry declared state-induced genocide. Black women and children. Oh, that is 97,924. Over 36% were black. Black women and girls are 14% the female population, but 36% of the missing. FBI data, at least 4 black women murdered per day in 2020, likely an undercount. 40% of sex trafficking victims identified as black women. Folks, this is a system whether you want to look at it or not, and you can get all of this information, all of the documentation, all of the information so you can research it yourself from my substack.com at Tim L. Harris. Right there. Follow that QR code. Okay? It doesn't stop there, by the way. Asian women, different pipeline, same invisibility. Latino and immigrant women. 72% of trafficking victims in the United States are immigrants. I guess ICE needs to fill their coffers. Folks, I'm almost vibrating so much I can't read my own notes. Okay? This is horrendous. Border policy creates trafficking. Increased enforcement makes smuggling more expansive. Migrants are forced into labor and sexual exploitation. The tighter the border, the more trafficking. Indigenous women, Interior Department and Tribal Affairs. Black children, community issue, Asian trafficking, organized crime division. Immigrant exploitation, Homeland Security, foster care, HHS, Epstein, SDNY, tabloids, same machine, different filing cabinets. Do you want me to read that over again? Different filings, different looks, different things they say. And who's they? That's a really good question. When you stop looking at separate filing cabinets and add it up, 350 to 375,000 missing children across all file cabinets. 93,000 plus still listed as active unresolved at last year's end. 50,000 from foster care, specifically annualized from HSS data. 1,000 children a day. 100 missing teenagers. 100,000 missing teenagers. How many teenagers are in your local high school? How many? 14 to 18. That would be 120 to 130 entire high schools banished every year. Can you imagine if that happened in a white neighborhood? I'm not talking about the 100,000. I'm talking about all of the kids in your high school disappear. Look, folks, I know you care about this. When somebody gets injured or there's a volcano or there's an injury or a tornado or something, we send money everywhere. But you are being blinded by not knowing this. I know you care. $64,000 to $75,000 black women and girls currently missing. Current. Global Slavery Index estimate that 1,900,000 people in modern slavery conditions in the United States. Folks, I'm not talking about minimum wage. I'm talking about somebody being bought and sold and forced to be in a situation. Okay? Law enforcement documented 3,570 trafficking victimizations in 2022. Law enforcement can't keep up with this. Okay? By the way, that's a 99.6% gap. Trafficking is extraordinarily profitable. Epstein's estate, after compensating 188 victims, paying lawyers, accountants, and courts, still holds well over $50 million. At DOJ's estimated $250,000 a year exploitation per victim. And other pipelines, immigrant labor trafficking, massage parlor networks, man camp operations, and the domestic trafficking economy likely exceeds $10 billion annually. A system that is designed to protect children would track every child in custody with connected databases. Report every disappearance within hours, not days. Prosecute across jurisdictions seamlessly. Protect investigators who document problems. Preserve evidence and reports. How many of those you think get done? This system does the opposite of all five. Okay? So every person born in America gets a Social Security number, right? Some that aren't born in America, but they get a Social Security number. If you walked into your bank and wanted to get $1 million loan and then said, hey, you don't need my Social Security number. You don't need my Social Security number. I don't care what kind of Jedi trick you got. That isn't going to work. So if every one of these kids has a Social Security number, how do they get lost? When they can track whether or not how much tread is on your tires through the computer on your car, how hard is it to track a kid's Social Security number? Okay, when I can't leave my house without being tracked on somebody's camera. I think they installed some on the pole out here. But go to a bank, go to a store. Can you go into a convenience store and buy a lottery ticket without being on camera. Yeah. And they can't keep track of kids. That's the system. That is not an error. They're not making errors. That's their system. Okay. So what happened to the people who investigated this? Well, here's a lady. Her name is Christy Grimm. She was the HHS Inspector General, career civil servant, worked under Clinton, Bush, Obama, and Biden. Her office produced the foster care report, documented 75,000 missing children episodes. You know, here's this career person, right? Right? She was fired because they have changing priorities. You know, the same government that pardoned sex traffickers and drug dealers. They have changing priorities. Okay, you ready for some more reports? They're going to be on Substack. I'm going to be citing them. They're going to be in the report I'm going to publish on Substack. So you can go and look for yourself. You don't have to take my word for it. 212 pages, 41 commissioners, 3 years of work, 260 witnesses, 7 field hearings across America. The most comprehensive federal examination of violence against indigenous people ever produced. Included specific recommendations for HHS to study Native children missing from foster care. That's not that report. This is a different one. So they documented the problem. Report gets buried or deleted. Oh, didn't I tell you that? Yeah, this report was deleted. I had to get this from a tribal nation to be able to report it to you. But it will be in the information on Substack. The accountability. The HHS Inspector General report is public. Posted 2023. Available right now on .gov website. Plain language, clear numbers. Every member of Congress could have read it. Every staffer on the relevant committees saw the summary. Every senator who sits on finance, health, homeland security got it. Oh, that's that new bill, right? No new bills. The reason why you need somebody like me in the Senate is because this is still going on. HarrisForSenate.com. Want to do something about it? From March 2023 forward, anyone with oversight authority, subpoena power, budgetary control over HHS, confirmation votes on agency leadership, or simply a microphone and a press secretary, anyone who read this report did nothing. Did you catch that part? Anybody who read this report did nothing. They know. They're not legal accessories. The law requires knowledge of a specific crime and active assistance to be a specific perpetrator or conspirator or accessory. Did I say that? They're standing at the edge of the pool watching children drown and debating whether the lifeguard certification paperwork has been filed. The 4 explanations. Well, we could say they're incompetent, and there's some evidence to prove that, right? We could say that they're captured. In other words, they're getting some kind of benefit we don't know about. Or they're a willing participant. Or they're protecting a system that is that diabolical. Yeah. The real answer is probably all four, only layered. Street level incompetence, mid level capture, high level participation, top level protection. The architecture tells you what it's designed to do. Why this matters. Okay, so folks, this isn't about sex. I'm not telling you that there's anything wrong with sex or that you can't have it as an adult. I'm talking about people being trafficked, their lives stolen. Okay? Nothing wrong with sex except if you're forcing children to do it. People's lives are theirs. They're supposed to be. We have this document. It starts off, "We the people." Didn't we clear this up like 250 years ago? Can you look to see that I'm still on?
Mm-hmm.
Because they may, okay. Evil isn't always a man in a hood with a knife. Sometimes evil is a policy that doesn't require tracking, a database that doesn't connect, a report that gets deleted, a position that doesn't get filled, an investigation that doesn't get funded. Evil can wear a suit, a white shirt, a red tie, and sit in a very high government position. The question isn't whether this is evil. The question is who benefits. Follow the money. I don't know who said that first. I know quite a few very rich people have said it. Where the power actually is, what you cannot fix. When a president pardons drug traffickers and sexual traffickers, when federal prosecutors file 7 suspicious activity reports over 14 years, when inspector generals get fired in the night, when reports disappear from .gov websites, you cannot win federal. What you can fix, state CPS, county foster care, local law enforcement, state attorneys general. Every child in the system exists in a specific county under a specific judge, managed by a specific agency, with specific caseworker. If somebody lost one of your kids, hell, if they lost your dog or cat, would you ever forgive them? And then if that dog or cat had a social security number? Come on. That's where our power is. We can demand better from our state governments. As a U.S. Senator serving for the state of New Hampshire, I could get better done. But I can't do it without your help, without your support, without you at least acknowledging that this is important. It's important enough for them to kill the story. Like, how many times has it been done now? What, you said 5? Okay. Mandatory real-time reporting. Every child missing from care reported to within hours. Okay. Connected databases. Target and track toothpaste across state lines. States can track children. Outcome tracking. Episode result must mean child located and safe, not just somebody else is paying for it now. Prosecution for non-compliance. Caseworkers, supervisors, agency heads who fail to report and face criminal charges, not webinars. Follow the money. Audit every placement agency, every group home, every dollar. Okay, the good ones. Not every person with a corporate jet is trafficking kids. Not every CPS worker is taking payments. Not every FBI agent wants to read old emails instead of finding children. Every cop isn't looking the other way. Some of them really are. I've got a lot of good ones in my town. some of you feel like you're hanging on meat hooks right now. You see what's happening and you want to act, but you're isolated or threatened or don't know how. We see you. If you can, call me. Let's ring this out together. You're not in this alone. If you're working in the system and you see this kind of crap happening, I don't even have to be a senator yet. In the investigation of this story, since they've taken it off the air numerous times, okay, I started digging deeper and deeper and deeper. Send me to the Senate and I will get the answers they keep taking me off the air for. Okay, so here's the deal, right? Here's the sources of documentation, and it's all going to be posted on Substack, on this little cube right here. So here's the thing that's going on right now. This is what we know. This is what we know. The DOJ released approximately 3.5 million pages, 2,000 plus videos, and 180,000 images on January 30, 2026, under the Epstein Files Transparency Act. The files were collected from investigation in Florida, New York, the Maxwell case, FBI investigations, and the probe in the Epstein's death. All of this material proves that there are people, powerful people, that confirm and document sexual abuse and trafficking of underage girls is extensively confirmed across all of these files. There's some stuff that came out just the other day, some more videos and some other stuff. There's some witness testimony that they call unsubstantiated. Okay? But do me a favor, can we please take all of that hoopla and set it aside and get back to documented sexual abuse and trafficking of underage girls is extensively confirmed across files and has been for years. Come on! Turn that light on, will you, behind you? It's getting dark in here. Maybe that's just my soul right now.
No.
Maybe that's just my soul. Maybe I just can't hold all this in. The sexual abuse and trafficking of minors by Epstein's operation is extensively documented and real. The most extreme viral claims, killing children on video or cannibalism, are not supported or verified evidence, but that journalists and investigators have confirmed so far. That doesn't mean every truth has been uncovered, but it does mean that most horrifying claims circulating on social media and running ahead of what evidence actually shows. We don't have to play with all of that. The whole thing is enough to make me puke, okay? There are substantiated claims of sexual abuse of these children. I'm saying, why hasn't the engine, the equipment, the harvesting equipment been documented? What's wrong with the media? This is going out. It's going out to my Substack. It'll be there within a couple of days. Please go and take a look. If you want somebody who's actually going to act on this crap, instead of go along to get along, I doubt I will ever be considered the most bipartisan, which is one of the people I'm running against. These people, he's the most bipartisan with. Yes, you're right. I need to take a breath.
Yeah.
Okay, folks, look. Here's what I want to say about that. Can we pray for these kids? can our hearts be open to the idea that we need to do something about this? Can our minds accept the idea that something needs to be done? And then can we again pray for these kids? You don't have to follow my religion. You don't have to like what I have to say. But kids don't deserve this, do they? Can we please just give it some well thoughts? I'm not even saying you got to believe in God, but at least, send some energy out that these kids will be found and saved and helped.